Hello, club presidents, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Daniel Rex, and I'm the Executive Director of Toastmasters International, and we're pleased that you've all been able to join us today. We have club presidents from all around the world. Those registered today are from Europe, Asia, Africa, and all across North America, so welcome. In just a moment, we're going to mute all of your lines so that we can have some quiet on the line throughout the call. At the end of the call, we'll have some time for questions and answers, and give you instructions then on how to unmute your line should you have a question. Throughout the webinar as well, if you'd like to ask a question, you can use the GoToWebinar functionality and ask questions. We have a team standing by to be able to respond to your questions as we go through. We again appreciate your time joining us today. We anticipate that we'll be no longer than an hour and a half and perhaps even a little bit shorter than that. This rebranding project that we're going to discuss today is a giant step forward in achieving the organization's mission, which is to make effective communication a worldwide reality. And that mission can only be accomplished through each Toastmasters club. This consistent branding that we're working to create right now and look forward to partnering with you and developing is going to create consistency worldwide that will create a clearer picture for prospective members as they consider joining the organization and as people first come in contact with Toastmasters. This isn't a radical change, but it'll take a concerted effort from all of us worldwide to make sure that it is effective and smooth. During the next 90 minutes, we're going to share with you a variety of topics. We're going to start with an overview of branding and then transition to the reasons why the rebrand was necessary. We'll talk about some of the research that's happened during this project and the results of the research and how the research has pushed us in a certain direction. We'll review your role in the launch and the role of your club, and then we'll discuss the Toastmasters brand position and exactly how the organization is going to position itself in the marketplace, and then we'll finish off with a look at the visual system, including a new Toastmasters logo and a variety of other things that go into that visual system. Please remember that the information that we're sharing with you today is confidential and that the brand will be officially launched on August 17th. What that means is that until the logo is publicly released, please don't describe it, please don't take any screenshots today, and please don't share it with anyone. We are going to be sharing with you a significant amount of material, including visuals of items that are going to be released, such as banners and lecterns and badges and other things that will be available to you and your clubs toward the end of July and will be shipped to you in August. As part of this process, Toastmasters International has partnered with a branding firm named Innovation Protocol. In 2009, after a lengthy and arduous, selection process, we chose Innovation Protocol for a variety of reasons. One is that they've led international rebrand programs for brands that you recognize like Microsoft and TiVo and Yahoo. They're also familiar with working with not-for-profits like Toastmasters and dedicate a significant portion of their business to working with organizations like ours. But one of the most compelling reasons is that Sasha Strauss, who is the firm's founder, is a Toastmasters member and has been for a long time. There is a club located within the firm, and many of their associates belong to their in-house Toastmasters club. So the people who have worked with us throughout this project are familiar with the organization, and therefore the result of this is a stronger and better product than it could have and would have been otherwise. Sasha Strauss, who is my partner today in presenting this webinar, when he's not leading brand development at his firm, is a professor at the University of Southern California, where he teaches graduate brand strategy at the Annenberg School for Communication. So I'm going to welcome Sasha to join us right now, and he is going to lead us through the section of this webinar that is called an overview of branding. So Sasha, welcome.
So it's an honor to be with all of you. I've loved being a member of Toastmasters for the last 10 years, and this project is really close to my heart because Toastmasters has helped me develop this business and has helped my staff grow and learn. So as we share with you today, you'll notice my passion for this project. It's an authentic reflection of the work that we've done because everything that we're going to share with you today is literally a true story. We didn't go out and say, wouldn't it be neat if Toastmasters felt like this? We met with all of you. We went to club meetings, traveled all over, studied competition, did everything that we think that we needed to do to make sure that we found the true, authentic story that reflected the Toastmasters brand. But before I get into those details with you, I do need to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. We're all talking about this branding thing as the same thing. Most of the time when you hear branding, you probably think logos. Now, a logo is part of the story, but it's a very small part of the entire equation. And in fact, I'm going to share with you a definition that we've been using with your colleagues around the planet, talking about this project and what we're trying to accomplish. So this will load up on your screen as it travels the world, so give it a second. And you'll notice what shows up here is a really simple sentence, that a brand is an exclusive and desirable idea embodied in products or places or services, etc. So let's just calculate what that means, okay? When we say an exclusive and desirable idea, exclusive really does mean that what we're saying doesn't sound like all other organizations. Now, I know that you know that Toastmasters is special. But if you ask the general populace, you just ask, the general community, they might not know how special we are. They might think that we're just about professional development or public speaking, and unfortunately, that's not enough. We need to make sure that we tell them a story that is exclusively ours, our unique story. And not only that, we need to make sure that we do it in a manner that's most desirable to them. Think about all the people that we're trying to engage in Toastmasters. They're not necessarily always ready to hear the story we're going to tell. We need to package it so that it's right for them. We need to use the right words with the right tone of voice. Well, what we're going to share with you today is this exclusive and desirable idea that defines the Toastmasters brand. Now, you'll also notice in the sentence that we brought up things like products or places or services. Most people think that a brand is a product, as in a Mercedes-Benz automobile. And that's not actually the case. It doesn't matter what you make. I mean, yes, a car can be a brand, but how about a city? How about Hollywood, California? I live near Hollywood, and I'm happy to tell you that it is actually not a city. I know, shocking to all of us, but truth is, a bunch of people got together, decided they wanted to call this place something, called it that, and then hired an actor to be the mayor. Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy, but that's the truth. It really just became a brand, a story, a reason to believe, an idea that doesn't sound like anyone else's and really is presented in a desirable way. Now, the reason why I want you to study this and share this with your colleagues is because the story that we're going to tell you is going to manifest itself in our brochures. It's going to manifest itself in the way that you run your club meetings, how you interact with Dan or Pat Johnson. The important part of this conversation is that we focus on the idea. What is the story that we're going to tell as we hand out brochures and conduct our meetings? If we do this well together, if we all work hard and fight for this common cause, three very special things will happen. And in fact, all great brands have done this. First, we're going to try and change people's perception of what we do. We know that their perception is inaccurate. So we need to alter what they think of us. Once we do that, and as all of us can admit, they'll know how great this organization is. They will prefer us, in fact. We will influence what they prefer. They won't just go to any professional development organization. They won't just go to any public speaking institution. They'll come to Toastmasters because they prefer what we do and how we do it. Well, any of us who've been to a club meeting more than 3 times knows it's not easy to leave. We become loyal quickly, and that's just the nature of being a consumer. All of us go to the grocery store, and we buy the same toothpaste every time we go shopping. That isn't bad. That's good. That means it's delivered on our expectations. It makes us happy with that choice. We, as Toastmasters, need to make sure that we change the world's perception of our organization, influence their preference so that they choose us. And once they've chosen us, we've consistently told them the same story over and over and over again so that they become loyal. I want to give you an international example since we're from really all over the planet on this call today. I want to give you an international example that will help you quantify what I'm sharing. So Starbucks has not won a single award for best tasting coffee. They don't have the cheapest coffee. They don't have the most artistic coffee. They don't have the best customer service. They definitely do not have the best logo. If you've ever looked at the Starbucks logo, it is literally a naked mermaid. I have no idea what that has to do with coffee. But my point in this is that it wasn't about the coffee or the logo. It was about the exclusive and desirable idea that they cared so much about. And let me tell you what that idea is, because I think that you're going to laugh. What they realized was that when you and I were in town together and we wanted to chat, we'd go to a, quote, coffee shop. And remember 20 years ago what that was like? It was dirty with these vinyl couches and these awkward tables and customer staff that were angry, and they poured us this terrible black water and in a dirty mug. Remember how frustrating that was? Well, what Starbucks said was, wow, you know what? It's not really about the coffee then, is it? It's probably about that third place in our life. Not our home, not our office, but that third place where we could go together and chat. So Starbucks decided that their idea was to perfect the third place. Make that third place comfortable for you and I. Make sure that there are newspapers there and little snacks and music in the background. All of those things together changed our perception of what coffee consumption was supposed to be like. We started to prefer the way that Starbucks did it, and ultimately now we go without a coupon. We don't need a sign or an advertisement. We show up and engage that brand because it gives us what we desire. I'm happy to tell you that as we studied who was going to be on the call today, we went out and looked for a whole bunch of organizations that have big ideas that have influenced preference internationally. And one of the biggest brands that came out of our study was this one. Now, as it shows up on your screen, you're all going to leap at the answer. You know what company this is, don't you? And even though this company name is spelled Nike, which should read Nike, shouldn't it? And even though you do not actually know what a swoosh is, you still admire this institution. You think that they're creative and energetic and inspirational and innovative, even though they just make athletic attire in Chinese factories like everyone else. I'm not here to minimize Nike. I'm here to prove that internationally they have garnered this recognition because all they ever fight for is the idea. They try to inspire. They try to innovate, and that's all they ever tell the world about. And they're not alone in this. It doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter what you're doing. We could take athletic attire, or how about cars? I mentioned Mercedes-Benz earlier. One of the largest manufacturers of automobiles in history, one of the first manufacturers of automobiles in history, definitely not the safest, definitely not the fastest, definitely not the cheapest. But I'll have to tell you, take someone right out of graduate school after they've worked hard to get those degrees and they're working hard in their job. What do they go out and do? They go buy a luxury car, not because they necessarily need luxury, but there's a little bit of how it makes them feel, doesn't it? As in when I'm driving around in this Mercedes-Benz, it makes me feel what? You can laugh at this, or you can acknowledge that we as Toastmasters wear our pins all the time. We love going to parties and having people ask us about our Toastmasters pin. Well, what we're doing here is trying to decide what that story should be. When someone points at that pin and asks you about that organization, yes, I want your personal story, but I also want to make sure that you're also telling the same international organizational story that I'm telling, that Dan is telling, that Pat is telling, that the whole board or anyone at headquarters is telling. And to share with you how consistent this needs to be, let's take something silly like this cartoon mouse. This is not the first cartoon mouse. This is not the oldest cartoon mouse. It's definitely not the funniest. Yet you've never met anyone who doesn't know that this guy's name is Mickey. Should astonish you. You have never paused and asked yourself, why does Mickey wear his pants up to his nipples every day? Never been a question. You've never wondered why his feet are so large or why he only has 4 fingers on his hands. What matters is, every time he shows up, every time any Disney employee speaks on his behalf, it always tells the same story about magic, that magical sensation that makes us feel loved and a part of our family. That consistent story works around the world, and it really doesn't even matter what we're selling. I'm sorry to keep saying the same thing, and we're not even selling anything. That's the best part about our business, isn't it? We as Toastmasters are not selling anything. We're helping people. But even if we were selling something, look at this. This is just a guy in a clown costume named Ronald McDonald. I do not know who Ronald McDonald is. In fact, the guy in the clown costume is rarely the same person twice. Internationally, there are statues of Ronald McDonald sitting out in front of these restaurants. And not only are there statues, but most often their shoulders are worn down because people are taking pictures with their arm around his shoulders. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing that they just sell hamburgers and French fries and orange juice? And speaking of the hamburgers they sell, do you know that their most popular product is called the Big Mac? And it is not large. Wait a minute. Guy in a costume named Ronald McDonald sells hamburgers and French fries just like everybody else and calls his primary product the Big Mac, and it is not large. It's never won a taste test. It's not the cheapest. Then why do people go to this place? Why internationally do people wait in line to go to this place? They're not waiting in line to bite into the hamburger. They're waiting in line for the feeling. What does it feel to be there? What does it make them think? Speaking of what does it make them think, how about this organization whose tagline is Think Different? And let me tell you, think different is not a grammatically correct sentence. Yeah, it should be think differently. Nobody knows why there's a bite taken out of the apple. Nobody knows who Steve Jobs really is or where he went to college or where he worked before Apple. But it doesn't matter. It inspires people so much. This manufacturer of technology and software in China inspires people so much that people get tattoos all over the planet. In fact, I implore you, go to Google Images, type in Apple and tattoo, and watch how many answers come up. Now, I know a lot of you are shocked and awed by this, maybe a little insulted, but I want to ask you, in fact, I'm going to tell you a story that Dan told me the other day. Apparently, he was hanging out with some of you. I'm not going to mention any names on the call, but some of you actually asked Dan for temporary Toastmasters tattoos. Now, of course, they are temporary, but it's the same idea. You love this story. You love telling people about this organization. And like my mother, who wears her Toastmasters pin wherever she goes, you want people to ask you because something about Toastmasters tells a story about who you are as a person. Just like these folks on the screen think that Apple tells a story about who they are, I think Toastmasters tells a story about who I am. Now, your first response should be, wait a minute. These are all commercial companies. They all make products that are sold in stores. You know, you're right. But I'm happy to tell you that after 17 years of serving nonprofits, the same story matters to nonprofits. Nonprofits need the same reason to believe. They need that connection. They need that consistent story told by everyone who's allowed to speak on their behalf. This is a perfect example. This is the Livestrong Foundation, which is a cancer research institute that was founded by Nike and Lance Armstrong, the bicycle athlete. Lance Armstrong was never a philanthropist before he got cancer, but once he did, jumped on board, created this story, and now 70 million people on 6 continents have donated to this organization. As you can see, it helps tell the story. It helps that survivor tell their story. It helps that cancer researcher tell their story. Now, this story that I'm telling you about is going to be your responsibility. And what I mean by your responsibility is that you're going to advertise. You're going to do marketing and you're going to do public relations. I want you to know the difference between the three, and then I'm going to tell you what the Toastmasters brand is to help you tell this story. So first I'm going to start with advertising. And if you're really into the chat we're having today, I actually ask you to close your eyes and just think about this for a second. When you're walking down the street and you see a billboard on the side of the freeway, one of those really big advertisements, that thing is actually the same as when you're listening to the radio and you hear the ad come across the waves. Or maybe when you're watching television and there's a commercial. You can open your eyes now, but I want you to realize that even though those things felt very different, they actually are very, very, very similar. Usually they have a very brief message, and their job is to scream at everybody. We call that indirect communication. Hey, everybody, listen to what we're doing. And we're going to continue to tell you that message over and over and over again. So hopefully, when you're ready for what we do, you'll remember us. That's advertising, and we as Toastmasters do this sometimes. But we don't do it alone. We do it with marketing as a help. What is marketing? Marketing is stuff like brochures or the mail that we send to our Toastmasters associates, maybe events that we have like our club meetings. Now, why are these called marketing? Well, they're called marketing because not just everybody gets to show up. We don't just give brochures to anyone. We give brochures to folks who have expressed interest, who have come to that club meeting or asked you for more information. Well, our website and our brochures and all of these things are called marketing because they're about a direct type of communication, a communication that goes directly to an audience that has already expressed interest. We as Toastmasters do this all the time. But we also do something else. And I'm sorry, it looks like it's loading a little bit slowly for some of you far, far away. I'm sorry for that, but I'll try to click the slides a little more slowly. So the third topic that I'm going to share regarding communication is called public relations. And hopefully it will show up on your screen shortly. But what public relations really is it's you. You are how we relate to the public. And in fact, when our staff answer the phone, they're how we relate to the public. And when we have a company meeting and we teach our staff at headquarters how to tell our story, they are relating to the public. When we have our international conference, it's actually the same objective. We are teaching you about the story of Toastmasters. Why? Because you're the best spokespeople we have. You're what we call a third party. You're a member, but we're not paying you to tell the story. You have made this choice. You have joined Toastmasters because it's right for you and your lifestyle. Well, you become what we call third-party validators. You validate, you confirm what Toastmasters does, and when you go home to family events or you're at work and you tell the story about what we do, you are just like someone who says, I've got a great plumber, you should try them. Or you should come to this organization because they do great things for great people. You're a third party validating our story. But your question should be, and rightfully so, all right, Sasha, what story are we going to tell? And I'm happy to tell you that story is called a brand strategy. It's who we are, it's why we matter, and no matter how we advertise, no matter how you go out and do public relations, no matter how we market, we need to tell the same story. Because if we tell a different story every day, no one's going to be able to remember us. It takes 3, 4, 5, 10 exposures for consumers to remember a single story. Market research has proved this internationally. So I'm going to ask Dan to take you through something that's just as important, which is the research that we did before we ever decided what the story was. We made sure to do work so that when we shared this with you, you didn't think that it was just a guess. We're going to prove to you that we went to the right meetings, studied the right competition, studied our organization's history, so that the story we tell is authentic and real. So, Dan, will you take them through the research now?
Yes, Sasha, thanks very much for that and bringing us up to speed and creating a foundation for our branding discussion today. Now, Toastmasters has been around for 86 years, and during that time, Toastmasters clubs and Toastmasters districts have been very creative. They've invented ways to represent the organization to the outside world in an effort to attract more members and fulfill the club mission. But the result of that is that the way Toastmasters is represented to the outside world and the way it's understood by the outside world varies significantly. We've probably all had the experience that when we're talking with someone and Toastmasters comes up in conversation, they invariably ask, what is Toastmasters? Or if you ask them if they know what Toastmasters is, they might respond with a quizzical look, or they might ask if we have something to do with toasters. Now, as an organization, to be successful at presenting our brand to the world, we need to make sure that it's clear and consistent so that the audiences receive the same message. Now, if you think about some of the big brands that Sasha talked about, if you see a television advertisement for Mercedes-Benz, if you walk into a Mercedes-Benz dealer or drive by a Mercedes-Benz dealer, you'll see consistency in the visual system that represents them. But when we think about Toastmasters or talk about Toastmasters, we've been very inconsistent in the way we've presented the organization. And what that's done is create confusion about who we are both within the organization, but even more so outside of the organization. The understanding of this caused your elected board of directors back in 2009 to direct the organization to step into this branding process and do some research and determine if a rebranding effort was necessary. Now, the result is that, yes, they wanted us to proceed with this branding project. And along the way, there was a variety of steps that we followed in terms of market research. There were interviews on the inside of the organization with the board of directors and with the staff here. Interviews outside of the core project team, but still inside the organization with members and with potential members. So members from clubs all around the world were interviewed. There were focus groups. And we talked about this process and the way Toastmasters is presented in their understanding of the Toastmasters brand. The branding team went to club officer trainings, participated there, attended many, many Toastmasters club meetings at a variety of different clubs from around the world, and as well attended district conferences, club officer training events, speech contests, all those places where Toastmasters get together and represent the organization. There was also a thorough review of Toastmasters materials, those that are created and printed both at world headquarters and distributed internationally, and those materials that have been created over time by districts and by clubs, and the way that the brand was represented through them. Another step in the market research process was competitive analysis. And when it comes right down to it, I'm not sure that Toastmasters has an exact direct competitor, but there are other organizations that compete for the same type of space in the same time that individuals use for their Toastmasters meetings. Some of these are shown on the screen. Organizations like the National Speakers Association, Dale Carnegie System, Speaking Circles, Speech Skills, the American Society for Training and Development. Now, none of these do exactly what Toastmasters does, but they appeal broadly to some of the same audiences. You can see that there's some consistency in their websites that are represented here on the screen. A lot of the colors are similar, the blues, the greens, some of the earth tones. Now, it became clear that Toastmasters' current brand, the way it was represented in colors and visually, was quite similar to these, that there wasn't strong differentiation. And if you recall when Sasha was speaking a few minutes ago, he talked about the importance of differentiation for a brand and standing out from the others and being strong and standing by itself so that when customers want to turn to a brand for that solution, they'll pick the brand that's differentiated. Another interesting piece that came out of this part of the analysis was that there's no one that has the exact same type of product mix that Toastmasters does. So primarily, as you know, our communication program and our leadership development programs are the hallmarks of the organization. The way that the club works and the speeches and evaluations, the timing and someone being the Toastmaster of the day, all that's unique. But what really stood out is that our parallel emphasis on both communication and leadership is something that's not like any other organization. And we'll come back in a few minutes and touch some more on leadership. One of the fascinating things about the way Toastmasters is structured is that from a communication channeling perspective, we're very strong and very clear. Theoretically, the way that we're organized around the globe should lead to a great communication of our brand both within the organization and without. If you look at this slide, you can see the global organization at the top, the districts below that, and then the clubs below that. And this symmetry through these three separate levels should create consistency. But the reality is that the organization up to this point hasn't asked for this consistency. And therefore, the image that we're portraying to the outside world is very inconsistent. In an organization that is on brand, the message remains consistent throughout the communication channels, top to bottom and side to side. So a clear demonstration of this is this slide that shows how the organization's clubs, so you can see clubs across the bottom, represent themselves visually. There's not consistency of logos. Some of them don't have the word Toastmasters. To someone on the outside, it's not clear from many of those that there is an identification at all with Toastmasters. Even at the district level, there's not consistency and there's not a clear picture that this is the same organization. I'd encourage you sometime to do a Google search for Toastmasters and then click on images and scroll through 10 or 15 pages and just see the images that show up. Now, there will be a lot of Toastmasters emblems there, but there will also be a wide variety of things that certainly don't represent the organization well and that aren't consistent across the board. Now, why is this important to us? The reality is that as club leaders, one of your primary objectives of the things that you'll work most on is attracting people to your club meetings and getting more people to join your club so that your club can fulfill its mission of providing those communication and leadership experiences to the individuals who join. And ultimately, the organization can fulfill its mission. So in this path to membership, the organization is represented on the left-hand side, and Toastmasters broadcasts a message. Now, how that message looks, how it's written, how it's communicated, has an impact eventually on how well the audience receives it. Now, on the right side, you can see the audience, and as we progress from right to left, you see that's the audience's capacity to retain. When the percentage of the message delivered intersects with the percentage of the capacity to retain, it's estimated that that's about a 10% communication success point. So what that means is that a large majority of the audience is not prepared to hear from us or understand what the organization is trying to communicate. That means that it's immensely critical that the message that we communicate is consistent and strong and clear so that the audience has a good understanding of what Toastmasters is, so that if we connect with them at the right time or when they think of us at a later time and think of their need for communication and leadership, they'll say, Toastmasters, that's the place that I need to go for this solution. So the diversity that we've created in messaging has, in fact, reduced our ability organizationally and our ability at the level of every single club to attract the members that they want and need for that club to stay healthy and strong. Now, if we continue down the path to membership for a prospective member, there are three primary phases, and these are exposure, introduction, and engagement. Now, within these phases, there are sub-steps. So if you think about an individual who hears about Toastmasters through word of mouth, which is the primary method, how does that person introduce Toastmasters to them? What is it that that person says to describe the organization? Do they hand them a brochure or a flyer? And is that brochure or flyer consistent with the organization's message? Perhaps the person goes on the Toastmasters website to find a Toastmasters club that's located near them. Is the website consistent with what was on the brochure or flyer? Once they find a club and they look for that club's meeting time and location, is that information accurate and complete so that that person can attend a meeting? Does the person contact the club? Is that email address or phone number that's listed on the website accurate and up to date? And then does the club respond? Unfortunately, during the market research phase of this project, we found that a great percentage of the clubs don't respond to simple member inquiries such as, hey, does your club still meet at this location on Tuesday evenings at 7 o'clock? Many of those went unresponded. And at any point along this continuum, there can be a breakdown that causes that member to not join and not experience Toastmasters. So along this path, we want to simplify and strengthen the organization's message so that ultimately more members can join our clubs. So we need to capture for them who we are and why we matter in the same consistent and desirable way every single time. Now, how does this new Toastmasters brand impact your role as a club leader? Well, current and potential members will better understand that your club is a part of a large, globally recognized and respected organization that's consistent, and they'll understand what it is when they need to make that decision about whether or not to attend their first meeting and then ultimately join. Your objectives as a club will ultimately be easier to achieve because the brand promise is clear. People will want to join, and as you know, that's a big part of becoming a distinguished club. They'll want to experience the Toastmasters program to its fullest extent, another part of the Distinguished Club program, all leading to your success as a club and your success as a club leader. And most of all, the benefits of the organization will be communicated consistently, broadly, and clearly. The likelihood of attracting members you did not expect to reach will increase through positive, consistent word of mouth and the way that we express the organization through public relations and advertising and marketing. Now, you as a club leader represent the brand every day, who you are at the club meeting, who you are in the rest of your life, and how you talk about Toastmasters and share this message. You're the strongest, best messengers that the organization has. And when you fully embrace this rebranding and become that person and share this with your club and encourage your club members to participate as well, the organization overall will become much stronger. Now, A few minutes ago, we talked about leadership and about how leadership has emerged as a recurring trend throughout this project. Sasha is going to guide us through a portion of this session that talks about being a leader. So, Sasha, back to you.
Thank you, Dan. So as we were discussing and talking to you about the research and sharing with you what we've learned, we didn't just do inside our club research, we did outside our club's research. We looked at the way that the world was communicating and where we were all learning from and who we respected as leaders. And what we started to do was just, as we chatted with all of you internationally, we started to collect examples of great sort of well-regarded leaders throughout the ages. Here's just a quick sample of the folks that we sort of grabbed. And I think that you probably recognize all of these people. You acknowledge their contribution to society, their name is synonymous with their accomplishments.
No.
I don't think anyone would disagree that they're great leaders. But what's also incredibly special about all of those individuals that we uncovered through our research with you was that they were absolutely also great communicators. They weren't just great leaders, they were also phenomenal communicators. We took this as an opportunity. We started asking questions and learning about the ways that all of you used your communication skills at work or with your families. It didn't matter where you were in your life. It didn't matter what your responsibilities were. It didn't matter if you were the leader of your community or the leader of a movement or the leader in your family. In every one of those circumstances, the leader was the person with the voice in the room, the one who could tell their story effectively and could communicate that consistent, important, personal conviction that defines who they are and what they believe. What was beautiful was when we talked to Toastmasters, folks like you found your voice through Toastmasters. You were enabled. You could lead your community and your career and your family and your industry and your movement because you found your voice through Toastmasters. And in fact, what we really came to conclude was Toastmasters is where leaders are made. We got so excited about this idea because we know that we're more than just communication. We're more than just about club meetings. We're about making ourselves into something bigger and better than what we were when we showed up on our first day. Well, this ultimately became the foundation for the story that we want you to tell as you communicate on behalf of this amazing, amazing place. So I'm going to take you through something that in the branding world we call positioning. And branding is a silly game, but it's really important because it makes or breaks the success of nonprofits and for-profits. And I'm going to introduce you to something called a positioning statement. And it's technically called that because it really does mean the position in the market, the place in the market that's uniquely ours to claim, ours as Toastmasters to claim. Now, I will tell you that this positioning statement that I'm about to read to you will never show up on the back of our agendas or on the back of a business card. It's honestly just for all of us on this call today to just come to a common consensus about how we feel, about what this organization does for us. And when I started the chat earlier with you, I recollected that everything that we did here was authentic and true. Well, I'm about to share with you a true story. And not only a true story, it's your story, it's my story, it's Pat's story, it's Dan's story. I want you to emotionally internalize this because after I read this to you, Dan is going to show you how we're going to use it. So let the slide load up on all of your screens internationally. It should just take about 3 seconds. And once it's up, I'm going to read it to you. So here we go. I wasn't born a leader. They were all around me, though. They were in my community and at work, at school. The leaders were everywhere. They were the heads of families and coaches of teams. They were business leaders and mentors. They were the organizational decision makers. And I admired these leaders. They influenced who I was and who I was becoming because ultimately I was aspired to walk in their footsteps, to follow them. But I also committed myself to becoming one. And it finally came to me. It wasn't just what leaders knew that enabled them to lead. They had a voice. They could tell their story. They could listen and answer. They didn't just accomplish. They communicated. So I set out to find my voice, to learn to process ideas in the midst of discussion and train myself to listen attentively, learn to give feedback, and accept it. I needed to organize and plan and deliver and follow up. I needed a place where all the ingredients were there, and someone would guide me along the way. I found that place. I found a community of learners and the path to leadership. I am a leader, and I was made. Toastmasters International, where leaders are made.
Thanks, Sasha, for sharing that with us and reading that to us. I think it's a safe assumption to say that as we read that or hear that, each of us feels personally how our Toastmasters journey is represented there. Now, that personality of the organization, I think, is phenomenally well captured. And that will become and has become the foundation of a new verbal system. And from that positioning statement, that personality of Toastmasters, will come other statements that can be used to target different audiences. This next one is a general statement about the organization. I'll read this one to you that is based on that initial statement. For more than 86 years, Toastmasters International has been recognized as the leading organization dedicated to communication and leadership skill development. Through its worldwide network of clubs, each week Toastmasters helps more than 250,000 men and women of every ethnicity, education level, and profession build their competence in communication so they can gain the confidence to lead others. The world needs leaders. Leaders head families, coach teams, run businesses, and mentor others. These leaders must not only accomplish, they must communicate. By regularly giving speeches, gaining feedback, leading teams, and guiding others to achieve their goals in a supportive atmosphere, leaders emerge from the Toastmasters program. The organization answers a new generation's plea. Where can I go to become a better communicator and ultimately a stronger leader? Toastmasters continues to build on its legacy by providing a strong foundation for the future. Its proven educational program continually evolves to address the needs of the world's communicators and leaders both today and tomorrow. Toastmasters members learn to tell their story. They listen and answer. They plan and lead. They give feedback and accept it. Through our community of learners, they find their path to leadership. Toastmasters International, where leaders are made. Now, I'd like you to imagine a version of that written in a way that targets the audience that your particular club markets to. Now, if your club is based on a college campus, this would be written significantly differently, but it would still have the same core, the same personality. Maybe your club meets at a retirement home. Again, it would be different. Or perhaps a club for entrepreneurs or business owners in a small town. Whatever the need is that your club fills, imagine this written in such a way that it will specifically attract that audience and will be presented consistently from all clubs around the world. That's what we can look forward to organizationally as this new brand emerges. Now, stepping away from the verbal system and going into the visual system, it's time now to present to you the new Toastmasters logo and transition into other pieces of the system. And that should be appearing on your screen in just a moment if it hasn't already. The Toastmasters International logo on the right-hand side, you can see is an evolution rather than a complete departure from the logo that, or from the Toastmasters emblem that we're familiar with the T and the crossed gavels. The foundation of the visual system, you can see that we've removed the countries from the globe, but we still imply a global presence and motion with the tilt of the lines. We've used strong colors intentionally, moving away from the lighter blues and the golds of the past. The fonts are modernized, and you can see that the logo can be used in two ways, the full logo on the right-hand side and then the word mark on the left-hand side. I'll bring up again confidentiality. Please don't take any screenshots of this or any other slides that we're looking at today. Until this is released, it is confidential, and we're grateful for your cooperation as club leaders in working with us as we progress through this project. Some people have asked us along the way, are we abandoning the emblem with the T and the crossed gavels and the globe of the countries represented? And the answer is no. That will always be a part of Toastmasters and will appear as the seal of the organization on the back of many items, such as the manuals that are in the new member kits. But this globe logo that we have now will be the forefront of the brand and will be the most obvious piece of visual representation for us. Now, I mentioned colors a minute ago. There are other pieces of this visual system, and I'm going to invite Sasha to rejoin us and to step us through some of these parts of the visual system. Sasha.
Thank you so much, Dan. So remember the Starbucks brand that I was telling all of you about earlier? When you walk into the Starbucks, doesn't it look a specific way? Isn't there wooden tables and leather couches and green walls and that consistent sign everywhere? Well, what you're realizing while you're thinking about that is that it's not just about the words that we use or our logo. It's also all the other visual components that we're using to communicate as well. That's what creates the Toastmasters experience. So I'm going to share with you a couple more ingredients. You'll notice, for example, that this slide is not just a blank page with logos on it. There's a color system. There's specific shapes that are being used. All of these pieces are going to be handed to you as tools to effectively communicate. I just want you to know where they're all coming from. So let me give you one example that Dan mentioned. When it comes to color, our highest priority was international use. What I mean by that and why I call it a priority is I didn't come up with a priority like, I hope that our board of directors likes these colors. Because that's subjective. That's just their opinion. Our rules for picking colors were things like, we need to pick colors that reflect no flag of any country in the world. So, for example, look at the screen. These colors together are not ever used, are never used on any flag anywhere on this planet. So, when we decided what colors we were going to pursue, we chose the business case. What would be the best decision we could make for our business and the growth of our organization, not just what colors we liked. In fact, it's not about whether we like the gray or the blue. What matters is that these colors are ours. They don't look like the competition. They're not affiliated with any other organization. And scientifically and through color analysis, they actually work really, really well together. Dan's going to take you through some examples of how we use these colors, and I think you're going to really like them. Now, some of you end up printing materials on behalf of Toastmasters, maybe your agendas or your brochures or local flyers. When you do that, you're going to need to go to the printers with some numbers. Those numbers, as you see on each of these colors, are actually numerical values for every color in the rainbow. We just gave you the numerical values for the colors that we want you to use for our system. So you see in the upper left-hand corner, we're talking about Pantone 442U. Don't worry about what the number means. Just know that when you go to your printer and you say, I'm printing this brochure and I want to make sure the colors are right, and that gray is called Pantone 442U, they'll know exactly what you're talking about, and your flyer will look exactly like my flyer, even though we don't live in the same country. Another tool that we're going to give you is what's called typography. Typography is the shape of the letters. You might call this fonts. That's what I call them. When I'm on my computer and I'm writing a Word document, for example, the font that I choose to use. Now, you'll notice when you get emails from friends and family, they use all these different types of fonts. Well, remember, as Dan keeps telling us, we're one organization. We're telling one consistent story no matter where we are in the world. Well, we need to make sure that our words look the same. Not just that we're using the same words, but they need to look the same as well. Now, we're going to make sure that you get a tool to help you understand what these are. Dan will take you through those brand manuals in just a bit. But I just want to introduce you to an example here. Remember, we didn't pick these fonts. We didn't pick this typography because we liked them. We picked them because they were in our best interest. For example, Gotham is a very elegant, simple font that's easy to read. Each shape is elegant. It's a really nice, comfortable font that won't insult anybody. It's not aggressive or extra large or anything that would be distracting. Another example is Arial. You see that at the bottom? You're probably familiar with Arial because it's actually the one font that is on nearly every computer in the world. It comes as a default font in your web browser and in your applications. Do we like Arial? Again, it's not about whether we like it. But if we're creating communications and websites that we want people to read all over the planet, we need to make sure that they read it and it looks exactly like we want it to look. and that's why we're asking you to use these specific typefaces. Now, Dan's going to take you through something I think you're going to be really excited about, because remember, as I said earlier, it's not just about the words or the shapes and the colors. There's a lot of other things that create that visual experience when you walk into that Starbucks. But we use images a lot as Toastmasters, don't we? We put them on our club websites. We use them on our international headquarters website. So Dan's going to take you through some of those other ingredients. I think you're going to be excited.
Sasha, thanks very much. First, I want to talk about images and the imagery that's going to be available to you and your Toastmasters Club. For the first time, Toastmasters will have its own branded photo library. We held several different photo shoots with a mix of people that we wanted to get into them to fully represent as best we can a variety of ages and ethnicities. There are also branded items that are included in these photos, like banners and badges and pins, to effectively represent who the organization is and how we function. So you'll have access to these for use in your materials through the Toastmasters website and a place called the Brand Portal that I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes near the end of July. And you'll receive emails and other messagings through the leader letter about this when it becomes available. So we're very excited and proud of these photos and hope that you put them to good use. The next item I want to talk with you about is what we're calling brand manuals. These brand manuals contain the guidelines for implementing the brand at the local level. So whether you're putting the brand on business cards or letterheads, whether you print badges for use at your meetings or tent cards for use at your meetings to have everyone's name clearly visible, you'll be able to look in the brand manual on the website and see exactly which colors, which fonts, how to use them, some suggested layouts for the page. All of those things are part of that brand manual. Now, a couple of people have asked me questions about this over time, and they're asking, is my club going to lose its personality? Or are we trying to become one big generic or homogeneous organization? And the answer is absolutely not. One of the greatest strengths of Toastmasters is how the clubs are unique. And maybe your club is formal or maybe it's casual. Maybe people come in business attire, or maybe they're dressed casually because you meet by the beach somewhere. However your club meets and wherever it meets, it's important that you retain your individuality. And yet at the same time, you can still be strong participants in the brand and use the brand imagery and the brand verbal system to represent your club to the outside world. So the brand portal that I mentioned is going to contain a variety of things that will be very useful for you. There will be logos there, templates that you can use and just fill out and print, things for your business cards, videos and recordings of webinars like tonight's or today's webinar, different information that you're going to be able to refer to as your club implements the brand. Now, many of your clubs have websites, and thousands of club websites are hosted through Free Toast Host. Now, many of them are not and are hosted through other places like Google sites or you're using WordPress templates. The Free Toast Host site will be transitioning to the new brand on August 17th. So your club will need to log in and transition to the new template. There will be some steps that you'll need to follow. But on the brand portal, you'll be able to obtain the templates for Google and WordPress sites. Now, if your club has a great webmaster and you've chosen to build a club from scratch, the guidelines for implementing the brand on your website will be part of this brand portal. So we encourage you to use that once you have access to it toward the end of July. Just as you've been on this call today, yesterday there was another call with some of your peers, other club presidents from around the world. Previous to that, district leaders and other people called brand ambassadors have been part of this process. These are international level leaders and district level leaders who are there to help you and support you and answer your questions. But the primary method for you to get answers to your questions is to send an email to a new address that we've established, and it's brand, BRAND, @toastmasters.org. Also, if you happen to be attending the International Convention in Las Vegas in August, there will be a special brand workshop that is held there on the morning of Wednesday, August 17th at 9 a.m., and you're all invited if you happen to be in attendance to visit that workshop as well. So your role as a club leader and a leader in the organization in implementing this is really to implement this new brand through materials all throughout your club. So refer to the brand portal, use a new agenda template that we're going to provide to you, and I'll talk about in more detail in a few minutes. Update your club website, and work with us organizationally to present this new brand to the outside world in a consistent way. Reinforce the brand through consistent application of your club's messaging and communication. So ensure that all of your club members are aware of this and that they're using the new brand in any of the ways that they communicate. And then, if you need to, answer questions and explain why Toastmasters International is rebranding to your local club members. So, and again, if you have any questions, please send them to our email address, brand@toastmasters.org. Now, the brand has been implemented and executed on a variety of materials that I want to share with you now. The first that we have to show you is a new club banner. Now, the vast majority of clubs that meet around the world use a club banner, and it's the gold satin banner with the blue logo on it. This new banner, as you can see, accurately depicts and represents the new brand. We encourage your club to transition to this new banner. It's available to existing clubs at a discounted rate through October. If you go to the website and do a search for brand or branding, there's a series of frequently asked questions, and on that page is information about the different products that are available to you over the next several weeks, including this banner. So we look forward to clubs transitioning to this new banner as quickly as they can so that we're representing the brand properly and accurately. Also, badges. Many clubs choose to purchase badges for their members and club leaders. You can see in the top right-hand side of the screen that this is the member and officer badges. There are also other badges represented on this page for distinguished Toastmasters in the top center, and then different district level and international leadership badges. So these 5 badges will be used to represent the organization. Now, your club may choose to print out badges and share them with your members or your guests locally. If you do that, please look to the templates that are on the brand portal or design them yourselves using the brand guidelines that are in the brand manual. Another thing are new Toastmasters pins. Now, many of us wear a Toastmasters pin so that we can draw attention to the organization. You can see on this slide on the far right-hand side is the new member pin. That's a full-color representation logo. It's larger than the pins have been in the past. I think that many of us have had the experience of someone getting very close and trying to read what's on the pin. These are a little bit larger to better represent that and to make them easier to read. The club leader pins are next to that. Advanced Communicator Silver is the one that's second from the left. And silver, bronze, and gold, you see that those pins are styled as using the new logo, but the color patterns are similar to what were used in the past. Also, many of the printed materials, or all of the printed materials, have been rebranded. You can see that the covers are shown here. The Competent Leadership Manual on the left, you'll see that in the Communication Leadership Manuals, the color burgundy is used for the leadership track, and that blue is used more prominently on the communication track, and those are the new advanced manuals that are on the right-hand side of that screen. So you'll see the continuation of that system where burgundy represents leadership and blue represents communication. Occasionally, clubs will need to use a PowerPoint template to conduct business or present other information to your members. On the brand portal, there will be a PowerPoint template available to you that we ask that you use as well. So you can download that and put it into place. Perhaps most importantly is this next one, and it relates to the club agenda. Now, if you think about it, there are 13,000 Toastmasters clubs around the world, and if you as a guest of one of these clubs walked in and one of the first things they hand to you is an agenda that describes what's going on in that meeting, I would guess to say that we have close to 13,000 different variations of this club meeting agenda. Now, we did a lot of research and collected many, many, many club meeting agendas and have distilled them into this version that contains the primary pieces that were shared among virtually all agendas. But what I want you to think about is that club member or prospective member who's following the path to membership. They've been on the website and seen the brand represented there. They've corresponded with a club officer, and they finally are attending a club meeting, and the agenda is handed to them. Wouldn't it be fantastic if the visual representation that they first saw continues all the way through and appears on this agenda that's handed to them? They know that the Toastmasters meeting that they're attending is the same as the poster or the flyer or the brochure that they saw, the same as on the international website and even on the club's website, a clear visual depiction of who the organization is and how it works. This agenda will be available in both color and black and white versions. Many clubs also choose to create business cards and stationery and some even envelopes. Templates for these will be available on the website, and we encourage you to use them and get those in place as quickly as possible. So those are just a sampling of the brand executions. Many more will be available for you on the virtual brand portal again toward the end of July, and we ask you to get those in place and implement it as soon as you can, but not before August 17th. So please don't create or present to the outside world or even to your club members any of these products until after the 17th of August. One of the things that you heard Sasha read during the positioning statement at the very end was a line that you've probably not heard before that is Toastmasters International, where leaders are made. This where leaders are made has become the new Toastmasters International tagline. It's different than a theme. We won't have a theme that changes from year to year. This will be a verbal representation of the organization, both inside and outside Toastmasters, and will continue for several years into the future. It may change down the line as it becomes less impactful with prospective members. Now, a couple of people have asked me, Dan, does this change the focus of the organization? Are we putting communication in the backseat and only talking about leadership from now on? And our response to that is absolutely not. Communication is the core of our program and has been through 86 years. But what we've realized organizationally is that leadership is the result of our processes that take us through both those communication and leadership tracks. Toastmasters members have an opportunity to become leaders and form themselves as leaders through their participation in the program. And that's why this tagline, where leaders are made, is chosen. So again, please don't share the logo or the tagline or the primary elements of the visual system before that August 17th date. We certainly appreciate your confidentiality through that process. All right. Now, thanks for being patient with us. We've been together for a little over an hour, and we're going to open this up for some questions and hopefully some answers for the next few minutes. So if you'd like to ask a question, you can unmute your phone by pressing #6, and then please identify yourself by name and where your club is located, and then I'll acknowledge you, and then you can ask your question. So are there any questions today?
Excuse me, I didn't understand. If I have question, I have to visit this site?
You can ask a question right now. Please go
right
ahead.
Now, what about the language? Because your logo is very powerful in English, but my Toastmasters club is French. So what about the material and what about the language? Because everything it cannot apply on a French club.
Right. Yeah, we are working with the French Translation Committee, who has been very effective at transitioning materials to that. We'll be able to present the tagline initially in August, and then as the materials become available, they'll be released to the French-speaking clubs. I know that there are a lot of those in Canada and then also some in France. So that's in process.
So we can still use this our old material until the French material is available?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. There's no need to have your new members throw their manuals away, whether they're in English or French or any other language. Please continue to use your materials, but new member kits, charter kits for new clubs, and all those materials that are available, and the vast majority of them will be in August, and we'll start shipping them out to you. But there's no need to discard the things that you already have. The exception to that would be the items that you use visually to market your club and to represent the organization. We ask that you transition those as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Great.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, my name is Colleen McQueen. I am the president for the Fort Mill, South Carolina Truckmasters. And I would like to know if this presentation would be available to print out and, so that way I can use it or just have it for my records.
A version of this presentation will be available on the brand portal in the next several weeks, so you'll be able to refer back to it, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, this is Robert
yes.
from Salt Lake City. I have a question about
Florida.
banners.
Let's go with Robert. I think there were two people talking. Robert started first. Go ahead, Robert.
I have a question about the banners. When I
Yes.
put in an order for the new banner, I was told that there were 3 lines of text that we can put information in, our club name, club number, and then geographic location.
Yes.
Looking at the new banner, I see here also that does the club name automatically include Toastmasters on the end? Do we need to include that in the order? And then also on the line with club number, do we need to put on our order the words club number or the word club?
We'll fill those in automatically as appropriate.
Okay.
Be back in touch with you if we have any questions regarding your particular banner.
Great. Thank you very much.
There was another Toastmaster who was speaking. I think we talked over you. If you can go ahead now.
That's okay. April Holtzman from Orlando, Florida.
Yes, April, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is about confidentiality. You asked that we not discuss this until August the 17th. Does that include our officers?
Well, let me tell you what we prefer you not discuss. Please talk about rebranding and that this effort is ongoing, and the reasons that we've talked about today about what branding is and why rebranding is necessary. But until you've received items from us or have access to the brand portal, please don't show the emblem or the color system to anyone, or really even talk about it or describe it too much. What we do want you to talk to your officers and your members about it and let them know that it's coming. And then as soon as the materials are available through the brand portal, then you can start to show people, because at that point it's completely public. What we don't want you to do is to transition your website or start handing out new business cards or brochures or flyers until August 17th. But your club's webmaster will probably want to start preparing the website toward the end of July and through the first weeks of August. So you'll need to talk with them about that and show them the brand portal where they can get the information out of the brand manual.
Right. I have a follow-up question because you had talked about the things that we need to transition to or the things that are visible. And you showed us a number of different things, including the banner, the pins, the badges. Our existing badges, we have kind of a little supply of pins waiting for people to earn their CCs and things like that. Are those now obsolete?
Well, yes. Yeah, those are now obsolete, and it's going to be up to your club to determine when you make them obsolete and when you choose to start handing out the new ones.
Okay. So anyone who's earning a badge or wanting to buy a badge now, we probably need to just wait until the new badges are available.
Because we won't be, we really aren't accepting badge orders right now, and we've not been doing that for a little bit of time. So what we didn't want to put clubs in a position where they were buying old brand materials and then transitioning very quickly to the new items. In essence, I guess, sort of wasting money on the old ones. So we're transitioning that by not processing orders or taking orders for badges, pins, and banners right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I have another question. A last question about the programs. Are all programs going to be the same from each club to another club or not? Or is it going to reflect the personality of our clubs?
No, the program needs to reflect the personality of the club. Now, what we want is for the agenda, the printed version of it, to look consistent, but within each club there are a variety of things that vary. Some clubs have table topics before the prepared speeches, some have them after. Some clubs have a joke master, other clubs don't. Some clubs have a grammarian and an odd counter, and other clubs that's done by the same person. So the uniqueness of clubs we certainly don't want to lose. And some clubs may have a themed meeting or themes for table topics, and certainly include those and continue to do those things. That's what adds variety and flavor and uniqueness to each club. So we certainly don't want that to go away.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
This is John Matthews, the president of CNY Biz Talkers in Utica, New York. We are a club that utilizes the free Toast Host web hosting for our club website. Can you elaborate a little bit on what will be involved with the upgrade to the new format? Is it just simply the header changing, or is there going to be other design changes to that template?
Now, there are going to be a lot of design changes to that template. So
okay, good. I was hoping to hear that.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be significantly different and better.
Okay, good. I think you guys did a great job with this. It looks great.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
This is Kim. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, this is Kim. I'm from Toronto. I've got a question. Now that we want to have the same look, our agenda has the club mission at the bottom. Are we to retain that, or do we strike that out?
I always think it's a great idea to have the club mission as part of the agenda, whether it ends up being on the front or the back of the agenda. Some clubs don't put it on the agenda, but everyone reads it or recites it together at the beginning of the meeting. Certainly don't want to lose that as a critical part of the club meeting.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, John McCullough, Central Communicators, Knoxville, Tennessee. We actually put our agenda on a whiteboard.
Okay.
So there's usually somebody jump in or have to switch roles at the last minute, so that's why we do it that way.
Sure.
I guess we'll look around for the burgundy and blue markers, maybe. If you have any other ideas for us, but.
That sounds great. I've not known of clubs to do that on a whiteboard, but it's a great eco-friendly way to have your meeting agenda there. So burgundy and blue markers sounds like a great plan.
Okay.
Who's next?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, this is Aparna. I'm president of Chester County Toastmasters in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I actually have a few questions. My first question is, you said you have held off the orders for taking in the orders for new badges. So when will that be resumed?
You can actually order those now, but we won't fulfill them until August.
So would that be around the same time frame, August 17th?
Yes.
My second question is, previously we used to have a theme for every conference. Is that going away? I didn't catch that during the conference, during the presentation.
Yeah, no, conference themes are still okay. Districts used to have an annual theme related to the district governor, and there used to be a global theme that was the International President's theme. So districts are not going to have themes anymore, and we're not going to have a changing annual theme globally. We'll use this tagline at the global and district level where leaders are made. But it's still perfectly appropriate to theme events like conferences.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That is all I have.
Yeah, it takes half hour.
More questions?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
All right. Well, hearing no questions.
I have one more question. I'm sorry. This is Aparna again.
Go ahead.
I have a question regarding the newsletters. Our club uses newsletters, and I'm sure there are other clubs which use newsletters too. So do you have a new format to be followed for newsletters?
Yes, absolutely. And that will be on the brand portal on the website.
And all of those will only be available August 17th, correct?
The items will be available on the brand portal toward the end of July. So it'll be earlier than the 17th so that you'll have some time to prepare.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's all.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Hello, I have a question.
All right, last question. Go right ahead.
This is Ken McKenzie from Talk on the Wild Side in Ireland. We plan to make cards for to welcome people to the club and congratulate them on reaching, say, level 3, whatever, of speeches. Do we need permission from Toastmasters to use a logo on those cards?
I'd have to know a little bit more about those cards. I think that's a good question for you to email in. Typically, no. If you're handing someone something with the purpose to communicate the organization, then that's not something that necessarily you'd need permission for. Items that are recognition can be a different story. So we'd want to talk with you a little more in depth about that.
Okay, so if I email brand@toastmasters.org, that'll be
they can help you out.
The place to start that communication, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you all for joining us on the call and the webinar today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your service as club leaders, and we hope that your club members do as well. We look forward to partnering with you and working through this rebranding process. And again, please be in touch with us about any questions you have at the brand@toastmasters.org email address.